going on in Nigeria, which is tagged the Christian genocide in Nigeria. The moment the Nigerian authority, the Nigerian government sensed that this could actually really lead to some sanctions against Nigeria, they moved swiftly to counter the supposed narrative, forgetting the fact that for years, the victims of the Fulani terrorism, the Islamic jihadists who have been, targeting the Christian communities in the northern part of Nigeria, right? Their victims have been able to have their voices, their stories heard in the Congress of the United States of America. Even though back home, the government of Nigeria continued to pamper the terrorists, especially at the time. So when they sensed that a possible sanction or possible sanctions are coming their ways, so they went straight into work to try to change the narrative, not to counter the problems, no, but to counter the narrative. But it was almost too late, because this was after the president of the United States redesignated Nigeria as a country of particular concern, where people are being persecuted because of their faith. So in this regard, Nigeria did not just pop up into that world attention of Christians being killed in Nigeria. They did their stats all over the world. They said the Christians killed in Nigeria in a single year is so massive that it drowned the rest of other countries where Christians are being persecuted. This is what got their attention. So the Nigerian government then went straight into an overdrive, propaganda overdrive, by trying to say, oh yeah, there are other Nigerians being killed. So why is it that America is singling out the Christians? That was their own argument. They said that didn't all go well. In the process, Nigerian government, some selected Islamists in Nigeria, some other extremists took to all platforms to try to warn everyone that if the narrative of Christian genocide in Nigeria should be allowed to pass, that it will lead to religious crisis. It will lead to Muslims fighting Christians. Now, this whole narratives or this whole argument keeps going because they were mostly sponsored by the government of Nigeria too. They didn't stop there. Some of the aides of the president of Nigeria went all over the country, all over the world, different media houses, in their effort to say, no, there were Christians being killed in Nigeria. There were Nigerians being killed. There were Muslims being killed in Nigeria, not just Christians. So the idea of Christians being killed in Nigeria or genocided in Nigeria is the figment of the imagination of those who are peddling it, forgetting the fact that this is like the collection of years of the survivors, their testimonies, their stories, and all of that, which has gotten the attention of the world. They didn't care. So things went on enough that, there were some actions taken by the US government, but they said out of the 8 possible actions against Nigeria, right? First, the redesignation, the second, or the target and the airstrike, and possibly the fourth, and more other things that are in the pipeline. If Nigeria government continue to pamper the terrorists or fail to show that they are indeed capable of ending the killings. Again, while this was going on, rather than for Nigerian government to actually really go after the real terrorists, the Fulani terrorists in this sense, and make efforts to returning people, displaced people back to their homes, because that's part of the condition. If you have ended the terrorism, or if you are in charge of your own security to protect the people, to prove this, you need to send these millions of people that have been displaced from their homes, right, by these terrorists. You need to return them back to their homes, and they should be safely returned back and go back to their lives until you prove that. So it's still going to be very difficult to say you're actually tackling the problem. But Nigerian government didn't do that. They didn't do that. So they traveled to Washington with the police IG, the defense chief of defense staff, and a few others like that. They went straight to Washington to go make a deal that seemed like to buy time. First, they promised to cooperate with America indeed, and they wanted the American government to drop the narrative of the Christian genocide in Nigeria. But yeah, they will prove it to them that this is not Christian genocide, the blah, the blah, the blah. So the rumor had it then that they were able to stock a $2 billion arms deal where Nigeria received some arms supplies from the US in the effort to combat these terrorists in Nigeria, again, buying time. But unfortunately for Nigeria or this government, the Fulani terrorists then increased, more or less like tripled their target on churches. They went to Kwara, kidnapped people, killed people inside the church. During the church service, they killed people and kidnapped others. They went to Kogi, right? They killed and kidnapped people inside church. So this did not really go well with the expected outcome of the Tinubu's propaganda drive at the time, right? So the government of Nigeria then went into a secret deal, but this is how they did it. Office of Ribadump, that is National Security Advisor to Tinubu, went into a deal with a law firm in Kaduna. So this law firm in Kaduna now struck a deal with a DCI group or DCL group, a lobbyist PR group in America. And why did they hire them? Well, this Kaduna law firm was able to cough out $9 million. Again, this is not money towards rehabilitating the victims of terrorism in Nigeria. It is not to return the victims back to their homes. No, it is to try to counter an already established, fact-checked killings in Nigeria, documented series of killings in Nigeria, especially the Christian killings. The Nigerian government is not doing anything to convince the people that these killings will stop and the perpetrators will be brought to book. No, they committed $9 million to try to see how they can change the narrative. If the world is not hearing them that, yes, people are being killed in Nigeria. In fact, they are killing more Muslims than Christians. That if the world is not hearing them in the last 3 months and the American government is not convinced, maybe if we pay an American lobbyist to help us, right, tell the American Congress, convince them that all the facts, all the evidence they have in their possession, including the trip that one of them took to Nigeria to go and see things for himself, that an American firm could possibly help them, right, change the stand of the American government. Because, to be honest, until Donald Trump tweeted about the killings in Nigeria, the criminals in charge of Nigeria didn't see any reason to actually be responsible for the people they are supposed to be protecting. They were giving themselves awards. They were patting themselves on the back, telling themselves that they have done so well. People are just criticizing, despite the fact that daily, the report of killings, the report of attacks, the report of kidnappings continue to rent the air, right? They kept telling themselves that they are doing fine. They are doing well. They are just people, this problem, it didn't meet the problem. It didn't create the problem. It met the problem. Until Donald Trump tweeted. That was when they started running helter skelter. That's when they started showing us that, they will have a military that could actually go after them. The blood. Oh, we need more arms. We need more, you know what I mean? So they started showing, but all of that are, again, just for show. Behind the scene, there is no concrete legal process to prosecute the terrorist, prosecute their sponsor in Nigeria. Nothing concrete, just talks. That's why they are able to cough out this much money. And I think they have already started spending it. I don't they see Oyinbos talking about the killings in Nigeria, people who have never been to Nigeria themselves, right? Suddenly they want to tell Nigerians, tell the world that no, there are killings in Nigeria, but this killings is not targeted, it's not Christian. Yeah. And in this day and time of social media, so it's easier to see through. And Nigerians are beginning to say, 9 million naira, don't they start the work, Abi? I've started hearing Americans who are now speaking for Nigeria on behalf of Nigeria to say these killings are not happening. We have them in the UK too, and they are going to spend that money very well. But is that going to really be able to bury the truth? Like tackling the problem originally, like going after the bill sponsor and the terrorist, wouldn't that just kind of like save them so much money trying to use a PR machine to retell the narrative? Just cash out and walk away, sort of. Here is one of them.
Well, everyone we've spoken to, including people in the US, but I mean, the most authoritative sources are obviously going to be coming from civic groups in Nigeria. And the view we've been getting is that there's a major security crisis in Nigeria. And I think the ACLED security trackers have said over 10,000 people were killed in violent attacks last year, which is a kind of low-level conflict level. I mean, if you think about the number of people that have been killed in Ukraine or Sudan, you're heading up to those sorts of figures. But that is across the board. That is Muslims, that is Christians, that is people of other faiths, and indeed atheists. I mean, every person, every citizen could be subjected to this violence. And I think that's the point, that it's not a targeted against one particular faith. Everyone is tied up in it. And I think it's had more resonance, shall we say, in the US, where the religious right and the Christian lobby groups are extremely powerful. And that's why it seems to have taken flight as a kind of propaganda meme that's gone out, and it's pushed the government into acting. Well, everyone we
ẹni òfò ni ẹ ṣòfò láyé ẹ tún ṣe lálìkìyàmà ẹ̀yin rádaràda wọ̀nyí. ẹni òfò ni ẹ ṣòfò láyé ẹ tún ṣe lálìkìyàmà ẹ̀yin rádaràda wọ̀nyí.
People will understand the prayer. You can help us interpret that to that, to that man. They've started. He's never been to Nigeria, no. The $9 million have started working. Okay. Oh, people with, you see, there are people, there are insecurity issues in Nigeria. There are people being killed in Nigeria. Last year, there are over 10,000 people are killed in Nigeria. So they started using people in place of those who have kept a record of their own victims in the last, in the last 10 years that they have been under this constant violence from the same ethnic group, the Fulani terrorist. And then the Islamic terrorist group, the ISWAP, Boko Haram, and the Lakurawas. So those who are their victims, those who have had their children snatched from them, right, by these terrorists are never to be seen again. And you may not probably care, but these are the survivors. These are the families of the victims. They keep record. And yeah, these are things that are not just, they are not low-level crimes, low-level crises. You get what I mean? So now, the American lobbyists have started working. And yeah, the reaction, because it's like the American Congress too, they themselves have started the second phase of their own sort of like, you can call it a follow-up. Because to them, like that guy said, the Christian groups or the Christian lobbyist group, as you might want to, or religious groups in America, they are very powerful. And in this instance, right, it actually took the victims more than 5 years to be able to get to this stage. That is the one that Tinubu and his regime want to try to manipulate and turn it into, oh, it is the Biafrans, it is the IPOB that reported them to the US. Yes, IPOB reported the killings in the eastern part of Nigeria. The Islamists and the target to Islamize Nigeria and kill the people of Nigeria. Yes, they've always been reporting that that is human rights violation. They have. But what about the people, the victims from Benue, Plateau, Taraba, Yobe, Adamawa, Sokoto, even in Borno states? Borno, Niger. What about those victims? What about those churches and those church clergies, that have been killed, kidnapped, slaughtered, killed by these terrorists? All these things have been documented. You may not be interested because they've told you not to probably demarket Nigeria. You don't want to demarket Nigeria. But you know something? When the supposed National Assembly of Nigeria, the government of Nigeria, decided to side with the terrorists and their sponsors, sympathize with them, while they continue, right, to traumatize their victims. So they finally got their voice heard somewhere else. And Nigerian government want to reduce that to, oh, they are just using propaganda to make us look bad. Who is making you look bad? You or people that have reported your collusion? So here, from some of their conversation on this matter, hearing that Nigerian government actually paid $9 million to try to convince the American government, right, that what they have as evidence of killings in Nigeria, targeting of Christians in Nigeria, they are not true. Just by hiring speakers that will appear on CNN, appear on Nigerian TV, because they also need them to validate this. They say, look at this Oyibo. Now Oyibo, they talk so. This Oyibo is saying that there is nothing like that. It is because American politics, the blah, the blah. They are all going to be all over the place. And remember, one of the problems that Tinubu is currently believed to be troubling him right now, to actually be troubling him, is that to push this their Muslim ticket again, is becoming almost like a death sentence politically. So there are rumors that he would probably be dropping a shitty man in the effort to try to convince all this effort to convince America, what are they doing to convince Nigerians that Nigerians will be safe? We're going to get to that. So here, from the first part of their conversation, and a survivor who is also a guest in this hearing, sharing his own story, the Yelwata survivor, right? Now let's start with this.
When President Trump reinstated that CPC designation. And here's why. Because we know that there has to be some external pressure to help change and shape behavior. And as we were moving through this and we were having our briefings and we were understanding what was going on, and I believe, if he hasn't spoken already, I believe Riley Moore will be here as well, and some of the work that he had done. We were in on some joint hearings. And I knew that I wanted to get a trip over to Nigeria. We had a very compressed calendar with what was going on, but I had a dedicated and great group of folks, bipartisan group, that went over December 19. We were there till December 22. Yes, do the math. It was more time on airplanes than it was on the ground, but it was very, very effective. When we landed on Saturday, we almost immediately went into a dinner with the head of the NSA, Mr. Rabadu, and Minister Musa, and a number of others. The foreign minister was not there. He was with the president. He was with President Tinubu in Lagos at the time. But it was a large, productive, long dinner, and I thought that was helpful. At the end of that dinner, I was talking to Minister Musa, former General Musa, and he was asking, well, what does tomorrow look like? And I indicated to him that we would be actually going to a church service, a Christian Reformed church service, and the head of the Christian Reformed Church Nigeria, Reverend Magaji, has become a good friend, and he and I had never met in person, but we had met a number of times over Zoom. And we were going to the church, and Minister Musa said, where is it, and what's the name of it, and I may join you. Well, sure enough, he came. And I felt like that was a bit of a turning point. I hope it was a turning point. He ended up doing a number of interviews after the church service as well, where he reinforced this notion of This not just being hooligans and people that were out. He was calling them out with ill intent. He was calling them terrorists, and I think that's the appropriate language to be using. And no doubt, Nigeria is extremely complicated. There's a number of factors. I keep getting asked by the media, yeah, but this isn't just about religion. And as I actually said to a reporter yesterday, I said, could you tell me what